Hey all, Scott here. It's just not enough. I need more! I want people to look through my window and see a bunch of garbage and say, that looks like a fun house to break into. So I was shifting between two options. I was thinking my first accessory to nab would be a window, but this one had deal or no deal. This is the Nintendo DS. And this is the Nintendo DS now. Handheld gaming has always been Nintendo's sweet spot. Their home consoles, they simply don't believe in roofs. The Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 3DS, and Nintendo Switch, all incredible successes in their own special ways. But right in the middle was the Nintendo DS, releasing in 2004. This was one of Nintendo's most triumphant accomplishments, and it showed they didn't even need 3 screens to do it. Dual screens, microphone, touch base, Game Boy Advance compatible, it was everyone's dream. And the game library really struck a great balance between hardcore and casual titles, which was something that the Wii attempted. It was fruitless. With a full suite of buttons and the bottom touchscreen being incredibly useful in many cases, more hardcore titles didn't feel completely out of place here. On the Wii, the more hardcore titles, their entire gimmick was, I'm a hardcore title on the Wii. Laugh. But the Wii was a phenomenon, selling over 100 million units. I personally always considered that to be the more popular system, or at least it felt like it at the time. No, you see, everybody owned a Wii. Everybody owned a DS, and 4 of them. 150 million plus sold. That is insane. One of the best-selling platforms of all time. Of course, being a portable unit with 4 revisions definitely helped that number. The whole family can share a Wii, but each member needs a DS for every finger. I personally owned a white Nintendo DS Lite and went out of my way to ensure I got the DSi. So I can at the very least confirm, while the DS family sold 150 million plus, subtract 1 from the user count. The long and short of it is, the Nintendo DS was a monumental success, even during the Wii's generation where that felt like the big deal. The DS ended up being 50% more of a big deal. And if the Wii had all these accessories and plastic add-ons made for it, run. The absolute nerve of Nintendo not including all this in the product at launch. The Nintendo DS had a lot of potential for add-ons. You can't look at this hole and not fill it. Like, oh my god, you could add anything here. Footrest. But we can't start talking about accessories until we talk about accessories. And first one up, my college thesis. Almost as notable as the inclusion of 2 screens was the Nintendo DS's touchscreen. The bottom one here was susceptible to abuse. This was the touchscreen. Unlike modern ones, it wasn't multi-touch and required more precise input, which is why using a bowling ball just didn't work. You could use your fingers, but the screen worked best with a smaller input, which is where the DS Stylus comes into play. This may look like something that cleans your teeth, but it is Luigi compatible. So many kids lost theirs, but it didn't matter. This screen will accept damn near any form of input. Run. But the traditional stylus still worked the best, which is why Nintendo liked to include extra stylusi. Didn't help things. The stylus industry blew up in the late 2000s. Replacement pens were constantly sold, different colors, sizes, but the issue is, each iteration of the DS had a different stylus design. The entire point of using an official DS stylus is then you can fit it back in its cubby. So if you buy a replacement stylus pack and it doesn't fit your specific model, or you went a little too wild and bought the giant DS pen, well at that point you might as well use a dull pencil. Yeah, there's this pen-like stylus release that clicked in and out. Might not always leave it clicked out. I must preserve the plastic. The final DS iteration, the Nintendo DSi XL, came bundled with a fountain pen stylus. The entire point of this model was to appeal to the elderly, and they love pens. This is obviously the most comfortable stylus as it's shaped and sized exactly like a real man's pen. Since the DSi XL was so big and aimed at Crosswords DS users, having a big extra pen here, it made sense as it wasn't intended as the most portable unit. This feels more at home just on a nightstand or something. I didn't realize until now how each DS had a different stylus design, but that's not nearly as egregious as the different chargers. I had to take a night class for this. Okay, so the original Nintendo DS has the same charger as the Game Boy Advance SP, which is a different charger from the Game Boy Micro, which came after the original DS but before the DS Lite. Where the DS Lite had a new charger specific only to it, then the DSi had its own charger that didn't work with the original DS or DS Lite, and this charger was used for the DSi XL, the 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS, new 3DS, new 3DS XL, and new 2DS XL. So the DS Lite has a charger that no other being can accept. They made up for it with the Slot 2 pack. The original DS and DS Lite were compatible with Game Boy Advance cartridges. Not original Game Boy, they aren't God. The Nintendo DS Lite was supposed to be actually presentable though, so they included this little filler piece to make the design look more flush. While I didn't ever lose the stylus, I definitely lost this little piece as it was completely unnecessary. It didn't do anything except make you feel better about yourself. Like, what if people see me on the train? The main reason I pitched this was so then I could just plug whatever in the slot whenever I wanted. In which this is the place the most iconic DS accessories called home. This slot, on top of giving us the ability to play Game Boy Advance games, completely revolutionized handheld peripherals. You couldn't do this kind of stuff on the PSP, like the Memory Expansion Pack. you, Sony. This was bundled with the Nintendo DS browser, and what I have here is the DS Lite version. This one will work on the original DS model. For that, you had to go to Nintendo's online shop. Weirdly enough, though, the original DS model's expansion pack works on the DS Lite, but the DS Lite version doesn't work on the original DS, so why wouldn't they just release the original version in stores that works for both? It's because the Nintendo DS browser had no reason to give a shit. Accessories that use the Game Boy Advance slot, or slot 2 as Congress calls it, are called DS Option Packs and expand the world of DS software to include Wikipedia. The memory expansion pack is required for the browser and very little else. Zero can be little. Yeah, this was only used for this title specifically because the DS can't run a web browser all on its own. We ask too much of it. So why not tackle something a bit more useful? The Rumble Pak. This is a full-on throwback to the Nintendo 64, where it too had a Rumble Pak, allowing for supported games to feel the power of a seizure. Some Game Boy Color and Advance titles had built-in Rumble features, but of course that cost more to manufacture. You had to design a cartridge around that kind of thing. With the DS, having an optional separate accessory meant more games could theoretically support it, like Picross DS. It's like I'm really there! Roughly 50 games supported the Rumble Pak, and most of them were released from 2005 to 2007. I think many developers and publishers realized most people weren't getting enough out of Rumble in these games to warrant plugging it in slot 2, so why bother even supporting it? But the Rumble is more impressive than I expected though. It's fairly nuanced, kind of like the HD Rumble and the Nintendo Switch controllers. It's not gonna blow your mind, but it's a fairly detailed little Rumble. It's a shame more games don't support it, though I completely understand as I'm not gonna go out of my way to ever use this again. That's right, I'm taking a stand. If we're talking DS accessories that plug into slot 2 though, we gotta talk arthritis. This is one everybody remembers, even if you never owned it. The Guitar Hero Guitar Grip was the DS accessory. Shows how much creativity developers had on the DS. How do we take Guitar Hero and put it on the platform without taking away everything that makes a Guitar Hero, i.e. the guitar? Well, you f up your wrist, that's how. Plugging this into the GBA slot and holding the DS on its side, we have a Guitar Hero game, now with one less button. I can be pissed about that. It works incredibly well though. I'm just awful at Guitar Hero. My hand-eye coordination from Guitar Hero buttons to screen just never fully developed. But that doesn't take away from how special this device is. It even came with a guitar pick stylus that fits into the grip itself. This was a pretty popular title on the DS and spawned a few sequels, including Band Hero, which also used the guitar grip but had a drum pad as well. This isn't nearly as endearing. It's a silicone sleeve you put your DS Lite into. God, these kind of cases always feel like somebody just wiped their nose with them. You slide that all on and you have drum pads. It works. It's kind of cute, just not nearly as ingenious as the guitar grip, but a worthy attempt at playing drums on the go. And keep in mind, these accessories were made with the DS Lite in mind. The guitar grip requires this adapter to work on the original DS because of design differences, and the Band Hero drums just straight up won't work. And if you try to play with the guitar grip on the DSi or DSi XL, reality sets in. They removed the GBA slot, but included an SD card slot, and as a kid, I had an idea for a version of Guitar Hero on tour for the DSi that connected to that port. Still proud of that idea. To give the DSi credit, there were some games exclusive to it that wouldn't work on a DS Lite or DS, like games that used the cameras. But 2 games found a way: Face Training and Face Training. This game focuses on strengthening your facial muscles, giving you a tight smile, and the only way for it to accurately insult you is with a camera. The Facing Scan camera was only released in Japan and came bundled with Face Training alongside a stand for the DS. You can pop it on here sideways and use this thing on a desk more easily, and it's pretty surreal to see camera footage on a DS or DS Lite. It works across both models, even the original DS. Since the device fits flush with the model, you have a jump scare option. Face Training was later released for the DSi in Europe with no need for the Facing Scan. Still came with a stand for the system though. But nothing will beat the magnetic stand, released only in Japan. This was primarily marketed alongside games like Personal Trainer Cooking due to the fact the magnets can turn any fridge into a smart fridge. The stand plugs into the GBA slot and holds the DS up that way. It's like somebody holding you up by your nostrils. But yeah, you can set it up for at a table by opening up the bottom and adjusting the angle a bit. It comes with a dangling stylus. Your question was answered. But here's a similarly designed accessory, the Slide Controller, bundled with the Japan exclusive Slide Adventure Mag Kid. It receives power from slot 2 and turns your DS into a mouse. Nobody told them the definition of necessary? This is weird. So you move the DS around and control the character on screen as if the DS is a computer mouse, but the screen for the computer mouse is a computer mouse. And it works. The Slide Controller is one of the most bizarre things Nintendo has pushed out, just because of how seemingly unneeded it is. But it makes for an experience that can't really be replicated elsewhere. I mean, a computer, sure, but just moving the entire device around like a mouse makes this wholly unique. Speaking of motion-based gimmicks, Activision released a motion pack for the DS. This was a third-party accessory giving the DS some motion capabilities, specifically for Tony Hawk's motion. I move the DS, I move Tony Hawk in the game. It works okay, but at the end of the day, it just makes you want a real voodoo doll. Sega released a card reader that plugged into into the slot, only in Japan, supporting just 3 titles. This is pretty much the same deal as Nintendo's e-reader for the Game Boy Advance, but even more useless. I don't have any of the games or cards for it, but if it's anything like the e-reader, run! The Easy Piano was a third-party accessory that turned your DS into like 2/8 of a piano. All right, here's the deal with this. This is a cute toy that is completely bundled and supported by the wrong game. Easy Piano is mostly a minigame collection just about music, and when it does use the piano, it's like mostly just a noisemaker. It's kind of cool to hear piano noises from the DS after hitting some keys, but that's like kind of all there is to do with this thing. Rock Band 3, that featured keyboards as playable instruments. It got a DS version that used no accessories. This would have been perfect for that game, but no. Ever heard of a Greek tragedy? Well, now you have. Okay, that's fine. I mean, this is a dumb piano anyways. If you really want to learn piano, there are far better and more realistic options out there to do so with. So let's talk about a DS accessory with real-world applications. I am, of course, talking about diabetes. The Bayer Digit Blood Glucose Meter plugs into the GBA slot. Naturally, it is a glucose meter after all. Now, I couldn't get diabetes in time to discuss how this actually works, but I don't really need to. It reads your blood sugar levels and is designed to give kids with diabetes more incentive to read them more often. So alongside this device, you get a diabetes turn-based RPG, Knock 'em Down's World Fair. You get power-ups in the game for checking your blood sugar levels. The GBA slot deserves an award. There's so much it can do. Help with diabetes, put the DS on a fridge, with Tony Hawk. We can even turn our GBA slot-based devices into iPods with the Nintendo MP3 player. It's just a GBA cartridge, but it released during the DS's reign and mainly pushes them on the box. It's a cartridge with an SD card slot and headphone jack. You pop it in and you can play your media files this way. The name Nintendo MP3 player was a localization of the Play-Yan series of MP3 players Nintendo released for the Game Boy Advance only in Japan, with the Nintendo MP3 player only releasing in Europe. I would have killed for something like this back in the day. Just seeing video files play via games on the DS was mind-blowing. There were a handful more GBA slot-based accessories for the DS. Taito released a paddle controller, which is apparently incredible for games like Arkanoid, but I couldn't find one. I got the diabetes meter, leave me be. Last one I have here is the pedometer for my weight loss coach. It really makes you think, why don't most pedometers have this plug? It's interesting my weight loss coach comes with a pedometer while my stop smoking coach doesn't come with Nicorette. But it's just a pedometer. When you wear it, you have the audacity to flash the Ubisoft logo to everybody. So yeah, it's worth it. Ubisoft did a lot of these life help games during this era. I believe they stopped because they realized they weren't good at it. Developed with a professional nutritionist. Just one. But pedometers were a big deal on the Nintendo DS. It's probably why Nintendo built one into the Nintendo 3DS. They love health. Especially dog health. Personal trainer walking, part of the same series as personal trainer cooking. You gotta burn it off somehow. This comes with the activity meter. Yes, you can track the dog's life rhythm. This game is pretty interesting because it actually includes its own meat creator from the Wii in the game, and the game cartridge itself is an infrared sensor. It actually concerned me when I saw it. I thought it was a bootleg since the cartridge is so much darker than usual. I never knew this is what the black market was like. Nah, it's darker because it's an IR sensor and it interacts with the activity meter this way. But did I mention you get 2 of them? 2 activity meters, 2 clips, too hard. Much like my weight loss coach's pedometer is a pedometer, though it is much slimmer and more discreet than Ubisoft's. Watch out, Fitbit. But the more well-known pedometer for the Nintendo DS was the Pokewalker. Bundled with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, this was a pedometer that allowed you to take your Pokemon from the game for walks, which would open up in-game content based on how many steps you take. This is obviously a gimmick thrown in there to appease parents who were mortified at the fact their children weren't using their legs, so they put this out using the same IR technology as the activity meter. In the end, the Pokewalker ended up being one of the most accurate pedometers ever created at the time. See, Nintendo was at their best when they have no reason to be. The Pokewalker was later repurposed for Wii Fit U. They used the exact same shell and technology, but one thing the Pokewalker has in comparison is that it can be misread as Pokewalker. Keeping track here. Speaking of Pokemon, here we have Learn with Pokemon. No! Learn with Pokemon Typing Adventure is an educational game for the Nintendo DS, only released in Europe and Japan. This title implies that other Pokemon educational games were intended to follow this, but you don't need further education as long as you can type Chimchar. This came with the Nintendo Wireless Keyboard, a very broad name for an accessory that only worked with this one title. It's a Bluetooth keyboard, which does mean you can use it on other devices, but the DS doesn't have Bluetooth, so they injected Bluetooth into the game cartridge. Just the different things they're willing to do to make things work on the DS amazes me. The game also comes with a stand for the DS, which is nice, but you can just set it up like a laptop on a desk, and that works perfectly fine. It's just a typing game. Type the Pokemon names. I may not know how to type any other words, but now Chimchar I can do blindfolded. After learning, it's time to go recreational, or in other words, recreate. The Nintendo DS TV Tuner. Yeah, you could watch television on your DS, only in Japan, but this isn't a new idea. Other handhelds have had TV tuners released for them, and portable TV sets have been a thing for decades. This would have been awesome when I had my DS Lite. I remember seeing one of my friends getting a smartphone that was able to receive digital TV signals, and they could watch Nickelodeon at the funeral. When I was a kid, the coolest thing ever would have been to watch TV wherever I wanted. In the backseat of a car at school, it was the coolest idea ever. And if I was in Japan and wanted to be laughed at in public, it could have been a reality. This doesn't work here. But if I was in Japan in 2007, it might have. Even if no signal comes in, it's a really cool nugget of Nintendo history. Just seeing the software, it feels right at home with other Nintendo products at the time. So this one's pretty fun. A calligraphy pen for the game Calligraphy Training, only released in Japan. This game teaches how to properly write out kanji because it ain't easy. Like what, that's not a box? It's all in the amount of brush strokes you use, and with the regular DS stylus, you can play it, but it defeats the purpose of the title. It's genuinely here to teach proper calligraphy, so the included pen, while nothing special, it's literally just a longer stylus modeled after a brush, it definitely helps. The feeling of writing in this game feels uncanny. It's so natural, but what if they went a bit further? What if it supported the Rumble Pak? I'll stay out of politics. There's another stylus alternative on the DS, the thumb strap. And so it comes to this. The DS had a few 3D titles on it, but just a single D-pad, so to make these games feel more natural, Nintendo would implement touchscreen controls, but to make them feel even more natural, they included this wrist strap with the original model. It has this little piece of plastic at the end. You wrap it around your thumb, and you have Nintendo's answer to having no analog stick. They could have just put in an analog stick. You go to all this trouble to make up for the lack of a stick, which just makes me ask, why didn't you just add a stick? I refuse to take baths, I instead bathe in body spray. Now there was a third-party stylus in the works called the Smart Stylus by PDP. I don't think this ever released, rather it was only shown to the press and was more so a tech demo. It would connect to an adapter plugged into the GBA slot and would allow for the stylus to rumble and light up and play sounds based on the game being played. It was supposed to be bundled with the game Squeeballs. And? I don't think it was. A game called Squeeballs Party was released, and there was a bundle containing a stylus, but it wasn't the Smart Stylus, which leads me to believe this never came out. There's the direction sensor card, which who the hell knows what this is? This was probably going to be a first-party peripheral or a variant of the Nintendo DS game card that could track motion. I believe it was used for this stargazing application, but that never released here in North America. At least a headset did. The Nintendo DS headset! That's right. Nintendo basically refused to make a wireless headset for any game console except the DS. You could use this with Pokemon and Brain Age. You do math like a bitch. Yeah, so very few games actually use this for voice chat. Games like Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Metroid Prime Hunters, Advance Wars Days of Ruin, but you could use it as just a regular microphone for games that simply use the microphone. I personally feel like this is a fairly pointless accessory. It's not like there were a ton of voice chat enabled games anyways, and even then, they pretty much all just use the built-in mic, which yeah, that's gonna be worse, but who the hell was expecting DS voice chat to be good in the first place? Here you have a cleaning kit. This helps us get dust and grime out of both cartridge slots. Me personally, I'm okay. I have a tub. Screen protectors, yep, you need those, especially for the bottom screen. But I never really was a big screen protector guy. I don't know, I consider any scratches to have stories behind them. This was when I was a jackass. This was just when I was a fucking idiot. Some accessories had both Wii and DS branding, like the official Wi-Fi USB connector and some SD cards, which, yeah, branded SD cards, so everybody can see you have an official Nintendo SD card, when it's always gonna be inside the system. Well, that's pretty much most of the Nintendo DS accessories ever released. Or at least the first 10% of them. Starter packs, pretty much any combination of case, stylus, game card container, charger you can possibly think of. They were sold, and usually endorsed and licensed by Nintendo. Like the starter kit, or the starter kit, or the starter kit, or the essentials kit, or the essential kit. Character-based accessories for if the TV tuner wasn't enough for bullies. Game card storage units. These hold one each, will ensure you don't lose your game cards. They're the same size as one. Stylus packs, Crayola! These support the claims that crayons can do anything. Game & Go kits for when you really need a case, but you really need Howie Mandel. There are so many accessory packs, and they're all pretty much variations of the exact same thing. Value pack. Okay, so the stylus is longer than my leg. 6 game card cases. Each of them hold only one each, so does this really help me travel with them? Does this help me travel with multiple at once? Each of these can only hold one game card each. Does this stop me from swallowing them? No!